The fight that was never supposed to be revealed. December 5, 1964. Oakland, California. Behind the locked doors of a small kung fu school on Broadway Street, something happened that would change the course of martial arts history forever. What occurred in that room during 8 brutal minutes was witnessed by exactly 10 people. And for nearly 60 years, they kept the secret. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and this one reveals everything about who Bruce Lee really was and who he had to become. This is the story Bruce Lee never wanted you to hear. The fight that broke him. The victory that humbled him. The 8 minutes that transformed a talented martial artist into a legend. And only 10 people alive today know the complete truth. The forbidden teaching. 3 days before the fight that would change everything, Bruce Lee was doing something that seemed innocent, but was actually revolutionary. Something that would make him enemies. Something that would put a target on his back. He was teaching kung fu to non-Chinese students. In 1964, this wasn't just unusual. It was considered a betrayal of the highest order. For over 1,000 years, Chinese martial arts masters had guarded their secrets like sacred scripture. The fighting systems, the techniques, the philosophical principles, all of it was kept within the Chinese community. Outsiders were forbidden, period. But Bruce Lee didn't care about tradition when he believed tradition was wrong. At 24 years old, Bruce was already making waves at his Junfan Gung Fu Institute in Oakland. His classes were integrated. His students were diverse. His methods were revolutionary. He believed that truth had no nationality, that anyone willing to learn should be allowed to learn. This philosophy would soon put him to the ultimate test. The traditional kung fu community in San Francisco's Chinatown was watching, and they were furious. The message that started a war. December 1, 1964, 30:30 p.m., Bruce was in the middle of demonstrating a Wing Chun technique to a mixed class of American and Chinese students when the school door opened. A young man entered, maybe 19 years old, dressed in traditional Chinese clothing. He didn't bow. He didn't show respect. He didn't even speak. He simply walked directly to Bruce, handed him an envelope, and left without saying a word. Bruce's students gathered around as he opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in traditional Chinese characters. One of Bruce's Chinese students translated it aloud, and with each word, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. The letter was from the Chinese martial arts community of San Francisco. It was formal, traditional, and absolutely clear in its message. Bruce Lee was violating ancient codes. He was dishonoring Chinese martial arts by teaching them to foreigners. He must stop immediately. If he refused, he would be challenged. Bruce read the letter again, slowly. Then he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an uncertain laugh. A genuine, amused laugh that seemed to say, "Is this really how we're going to do this?" He folded the letter carefully, put it in his pocket, and went back to teaching his class as if nothing had happened. But his students noticed something different. For the rest of that class, Bruce's techniques were sharper, faster, more intense. The letter had awakened something in him, something dangerous. The champion arrives December 3, 1964, 4:00 p.m. exactly. Wang Jack Man wasn't like the young messenger who had delivered the letter. He was a serious martial artist, trained in the classical styles of Northern Shaolin. In his late 20s, tall for a Chinese man, with a lean, muscular build that spoke of years of dedicated training. In San Francisco's Chinatown, Wang Jack Man had a reputation. He was known for his speed, his precision, and his unwavering adherence to traditional forms. But more importantly, he was known as a man of honor. When the elders of the martial arts community asked him to deliver their final message to Bruce Lee, he agreed. Not out of hatred or jealousy, but because he genuinely believed in preserving tradition. Wang Jack Man arrived at Bruce's school with 5 companions, all traditional martial artists, all dressed in classic training clothes. They entered without knocking, interrupting a private lesson Bruce was giving. The moment the 6 men entered, the atmosphere changed. Electric. Heavy. Bruce's student instinctively stepped back, sensing something was about to happen. Wang Jack Man stepped forward and spoke in clear, formal Cantonese. "I have come on behalf of the traditional martial arts community. You were given a warning. You ignored it. There is now only one way to resolve this matter. A challenge match." The terms were simple and brutal. If Bruce Lee won, he could continue teaching whoever he wanted. If Wang Jack Man won, Bruce must close his school and stop teaching non-Chinese students forever. The rules, no rules. Traditional challenge match. Fight until one man could not continue. Bruce looked at Wong Jack Man, then at the 5 men standing behind him, then at his watch. Okay, Bruce said in Cantonese. But not today. Give me 2 days to clear my schedule. Come back Saturday, December 5th, 200 p.m. Wong Jack Man nodded. Saturday 200. Then they left as silently as they had arrived. After they were gone, Bruce's student asked if he was worried. Bruce's answer would later be remembered as prophetic. Worried. No. But I'm going to learn something important on Saturday. Either about him, or about myself. The preparation. Bruce Lee didn't tell many people about the challenge. He didn't announce it. He didn't brag about it. He simply prepared. But Linda Lee, his wife, noticed immediately that something had changed. On Thursday and Friday, Bruce trained differently. He wasn't practicing flashy techniques or complex forms. He was drilling basics over and over. Punches. Footwork. Timing. He was preparing for a real fight. When Linda asked if he was concerned about the challenge, Bruce gave her an answer that revealed his mindset. I'm not concerned about winning or losing. I'm concerned about what the fight will teach me. Bruce understood something that most fighters never grasp. Every real confrontation is a mirror. It shows you exactly who you are and what you need to become. Friday night, Bruce barely slept, not because he was nervous, but because his mind was racing through scenarios, strategies, possibilities. He was mentally fighting the battle over and over, preparing for variables, anticipating reactions. By Saturday morning, Bruce Lee was as ready as any human being could be for what was coming. The witness is Saturday, December 5th, 1964, 1:10:30 p.m. Bruce arrived at his school early alone. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and began preparing the space. He moved equipment to the sides, cleared furniture, created an open area in the center of the room. Then he waited. At exactly 200 p.m., Wong Jack Man arrived. But he wasn't alone. He brought the same 5 martial artists who had accompanied him before. Behind them came 2 additional men, older, clearly masters from the traditional community. Bruce hadn't invited anyone. He'd wanted this to be private. But when he saw the group entering his school, he understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't just a challenge match. This was a statement. The traditional community wanted witnesses. They wanted proof. Bruce didn't protest. He gestured for them to enter and position themselves along the walls of the training area. Then, at the last moment, something unexpected happened. 3 of Bruce's students appeared at the door. They'd somehow heard about the challenge. They asked if they could watch. Bruce looked at them for a long moment. Then he nodded. If Wong Jack Man could have witnesses, so could he. Now there were exactly 10 people in that room. 10 witnesses who would later tell very different versions of what happened next. None of them were prepared for what they were about to see. The calm before the storm. Wong Jack Man stepped into the center of the cleared space and removed his jacket, revealing a simple black training uniform. He began his warm-up, traditional stretches and forms, moving with precise, controlled movements that demonstrated years of disciplined practice. Bruce Lee didn't warm up. He simply stood at the opposite end of the space watching, analyzing. One of Bruce's students would later say that Bruce looked different that day. Not angry, not excited, calm. But it was a dangerous kind of calm, like the stillness before an earthquake. When Wong Jack Man finished his warm-up, he took a traditional kung fu stance and nodded at Bruce. Bruce nodded back. One of the older masters from San Francisco spoke in Cantonese. This is a traditional challenge match. No eye strikes, no groin strikes, no attacks to the throat. Fight until one man submits or cannot continue. Both fighters nodded their agreement. There was no referee, no bell, no countdown. The older master simply said one word, begin. The dance of death. For the first few seconds, neither man moved. They circled each other slowly, maintaining distance, measuring, calculating. It was like watching 2 apex predators study each other before the hunt. Wong Jack Man held a classic northern Shaolin stance, weight distributed evenly, hands positioned for both attack and defense. His movements were textbook perfect, exactly as the traditional forms taught for hundreds of years. Bruce Lee's stance was different, lower, more mobile, weight shifting constantly. It wasn't any recognizable traditional stance. It was something new, something he was still developing. The 10 witnesses held their breath. Then Wong Jack Man struck first. He launched forward with a traditional straight punch, fast, precise, aimed at Bruce's chest. It was a testing attack, designed to gauge Bruce's reaction and speed. Bruce slipped the punch easily, moving his upper body just enough to let it pass by his shoulder. He didn't counterattack. He simply reset his position and continued circling. Wang Jackman attacked again. This time with a combination, a high punch followed immediately by a low kick. Classic traditional technique, designed to split the opponent's attention between high and low targets. Bruce blocked the punch with his left hand and checked the kick with his shin. Still no counter-attack. Still just defense, observation, learning. The traditional masters along the wall nodded slightly. Wang Jackman's technique was excellent, exactly as it should be. But Bruce's students noticed something else. Bruce wasn't just defending, he was studying. His eyes never left Wang Jackman's center, watching the subtle shifts in weight, the tells that telegraph each technique before it happens. Wang Jackman increased his pace, launching a series of attacks, punches and kicks, advancing, trying to pressure Bruce, trying to force him into a mistake. Bruce gave ground, backing up, absorbing the pressure. His defense was tight and efficient, but he was retreating. This continued for perhaps 30 seconds. To the witnesses, it might have seemed like Wang Jackman was dominating, forcing Bruce to retreat, establishing control of the fight. They were wrong. Bruce Lee was learning. Every attack, every combination, every rhythm, he was downloading Wang Jackman's entire fighting system, understanding it, finding its weaknesses. And then, in an instant, everything changed. The interception, Wang Jackman threw another punch, the same straight punch he'd been using successfully. He was confident now, feeling like he was controlling the fight. But this time, Bruce didn't slip it. He didn't block it. He intercepted it. Bruce's hand shot forward like a striking snake and trapped Wang Jackman's punching arm at the wrist. Before Wang Jackman could react, Bruce had closed the distance between them and was inside his guard. What happened next happened so fast that the 10 witnesses would argue about it for decades. Bruce struck Wang Jackman with a rapid series of straight punches to the body and head. These weren't wild swings or telegraphed attacks. They were short, direct, explosive punches fired from close range with devastating precision. Wang Jackman tried to create distance, tried to reset to his preferred fighting range where his traditional techniques would be effective. But Bruce followed him like his shadow, maintaining the close distance, cutting off angles, not allowing escape. The traditional masters along the wall shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how traditional challenge matches were supposed to go. There were supposed to be exchanges of techniques, displays of classical combinations, demonstrations of form and skill. This was something else entirely. This was combat. Wang Jackman, to his credit, didn't panic. He changed his strategy, using his footwork to create angles, moving laterally instead of straight back. He threw quick kicks to try to keep Bruce at bay. But Bruce adapted instantly. Every time Wang Jackman tried to establish his preferred distance, Bruce closed it again. Every time Wang Jackman tried to use traditional techniques, Bruce interrupted them before they could fully develop. One of the traditional masters would later say that watching Bruce Lee fight was like watching water. He had no fixed form. He simply flowed into whatever space Wang Jackman left open. The breakdown 2 minutes into the fight, both men were breathing harder, but Wang Jackman was breathing much harder. He was discovering something that would change his understanding of martial arts forever. All his years of training, all his perfect forms, all his traditional techniques meant nothing if he couldn't create the time and space to use them. And Bruce Lee was not giving him time or space. Bruce's approach was like nothing Wang Jackman had ever encountered. There was no style to read, no pattern to predict, no traditional strategy to counter. Bruce was pure adaptation, flowing from technique to technique based on what the moment required. Around the 3-minute mark, the fight changed again. Wang Jackman made a desperate decision. He couldn't win this fight standing and trading techniques with Bruce. He needed to change the game entirely. He suddenly dropped low and shot in for a takedown, trying to grab Bruce's legs and bring the fight to the ground. It was a move completely outside traditional Northern Shaolin training, but Wang Jackman was fighting for survival now, not style points. Bruce sprawled expertly, defending the takedown by spreading his legs and dropping his weight. He wrapped his arms around Wang Jackman's upper body and started striking the back of his head and neck with short, hammering blows. Wang Jackman released the takedown attempt and tried to create separation. But as he backed away, Bruce pursued him aggressively. This was when the fight became truly chaotic. The Chase Wang Jack man began moving around the room, trying to use the space to reset, to catch his breath, to find some kind of opening. Bruce chased him. Not in a wild, mindless way, but with purpose. Cutting off angles, applying constant pressure, never allowing recovery. The 10 witnesses had to press themselves against the walls as the two fighters moved around the room. Furniture was bumped. Equipment was knocked over. What had started as a formal challenge match had become a desperate chase. One of Bruce's students would later describe this phase of the fight as terrifying. He said it looked like Bruce had become something else, something relentless and unstoppable. Like a force of nature pursuing its target with inevitable determination. Wang Jack man threw everything he had left, spinning kicks, jumping techniques, desperate combinations. Some of his strikes landed, but they didn't slow Bruce down. Bruce absorbed the damage and kept coming. Bruce's counter strikes were different. They were precise, economical, targeted. He wasn't trying to knock Wang Jack man out with one big punch. He was breaking him down systematically, strike by strike, pressure by pressure. Around the 5-minute mark, Wang Jack man's movements began to slow. His techniques became less crisp, his footwork less precise. Exhaustion was setting in. But the fight wasn't over yet. The moment of truth, Wang Jack man's back hit the wall. For a moment, he had nowhere to go. Bruce was directly in front of him, cutting off all escape routes. This was the moment when the fight could have ended decisively. Bruce loaded up for what looked like a finishing combination. The witnesses could see it coming. Wang Jack man was trapped, exhausted, defenseless. But then something unexpected happened. One of the traditional masters from San Francisco shouted in Cantonese. "Enough! This has been proven." Bruce stopped his attack mid-motion. He stepped back, breathing hard, looking at the master who had spoken. Wang Jack man, still against the wall, also looked at the master. His face showed a mixture of relief and shame. The master stepped forward into the fighting area. "The challenge has been answered. There is no need to continue to injury or humiliation. The traditional community has seen what it needed to see." For a moment, it seemed like the fight was over. But then Bruce Lee did something that shocked everyone in the room. He said, "No." The test of honor. Bruce looked directly at Wang Jack man, ignoring the master who had tried to stop the fight. "We agreed to fight until one man could not continue," Bruce said in Cantonese. "Can you continue?" Wang Jack man, still leaning against the wall, exhausted and hurt, straightened up slowly. He looked at Bruce for a long moment, measuring not just his physical state, but his will to keep fighting. Then he nodded. He could continue. The traditional master tried to protest, but Bruce cut him off. "This is between him and me. Nobody else." Wang Jack man pushed himself off the wall and moved back into the center of the room. He raised his hands into a fighting position, though his arms were visibly shaking from exhaustion. Bruce respected this display of courage. He didn't attack immediately. He waited for Wang Jack man to set himself to prepare. This wasn't cruelty. This was Bruce giving Wang Jack man the chance to face defeat with dignity. The 10 witnesses were silent. The atmosphere in the room had changed completely. This was no longer about style versus style, or tradition versus innovation. This was about will, about honor, about who wanted it more. The end. Wang Jack man attacked first in this final exchange. A desperate lunging punch with everything he had left. One last attempt to change the outcome of the fight. Bruce slipped the punch, trapped the arm, and swept Wang Jack man's legs out from under him in one fluid motion. Wang Jack man fell hard onto the wooden floor. Bruce followed him down, establishing a controlling position on top, ready to finish the fight with ground strikes. But he didn't strike. He looked down at Wang Jack man and asked quietly in Cantonese, "Are you finished?" Wang Jack man, pinned on the floor, unable to escape, didn't answer immediately. The witnesses would later disagree about what happened next. Some said Wang Jack man verbally submitted, others said he simply stopped resisting and turned his face away. But everyone agreed on one thing. The fight was over. Bruce Lee had won. The unexpected response. Bruce stood up slowly. He was breathing hard, covered in sweat, but he wasn't seriously injured. Wang Jack man remained on the floor for a moment longer, then slowly got to his feet with help from one of his companions. The room was absolutely silent. One of the traditional masters approached Bruce and bowed formally and deeply. "You have proven your point," he said in Cantonese. "We will not challenge you again." But Bruce didn't bow back. Instead, he said something that would be debated and discussed for decades. I didn't prove my point. I proved that I have a lot to learn. Everyone in the room looked at him in confusion. He had just won decisively. How could he say he had things to learn? Bruce looked at his hands, flexing them, feeling them. Then he spoke again, more to himself than to the witnesses. That fight took too long. It should have been over in seconds. My techniques were inefficient. My conditioning wasn't good enough. If Wong Jack Man had been armed, if there had been multiple opponents, I would have been in trouble. Wong Jack Man, still catching his breath, looked at Bruce with an expression of pure disbelief. He had just been beaten, and his opponent was criticizing his own performance. But Bruce was serious. The fight had shown him weaknesses in his own approach that he'd never seen before. The revelation in Bruce Lee's mind: this fight wasn't a victory. It was a lesson. A harsh, humbling lesson about the gap between where he was and where he needed to be. Bruce had relied too much on chasing, on pursuing. He'd wasted energy. His finishing techniques hadn't been decisive enough. His understanding of real combat was incomplete. The traditional masters didn't know how to respond to this self-criticism. They left quietly, taking Wong Jack Man and the other witnesses with them. Bruce's students remained for a moment. One of them asked if he was happy about winning. Bruce didn't answer directly. He walked to a chair and sat down heavily, his body finally showing the exhaustion he'd been suppressing. "Starting Monday," he said, "everything changes. We're going to train differently. We're going to think differently. Today showed me that traditional techniques are too complicated for real fighting. We need something simpler, more direct, more efficient." His students didn't fully understand what he meant at the time, but they would. In the coming years, Bruce would develop and refine what he called Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. A martial art with no fixed forms, no classical techniques, only principles of directness, simplicity, and efficiency. The fight with Wong Jack Man was the catalyst for that revolution. The secret agreement, what happened next, was known only to a very few people, and it remained secret for decades. 3 days after the fight, Bruce Lee met privately with Wong Jack Man. This meeting was witnessed by only one person, a mutual acquaintance who had been asked to arrange it. According to this witness, Bruce approached Wong Jack Man not as an enemy, but as a fellow martial artist. He told Wong Jack Man that he respected his skill and his courage in accepting the challenge. Then Bruce made an unusual request. He asked Wong Jack Man not to talk about the details of the fight. He asked him to tell people it had been close, inconclusive, a matter of different interpretations. Wong Jack Man, confused, asked why. Bruce explained his reasoning with remarkable wisdom. "If the martial arts community believes I completely destroyed you, it will create problems. It will make me a target. Every traditional master will want to test me to prove their style is superior. But more importantly, I don't want to humiliate you publicly. You fought with honor. You accepted defeat with dignity. There's no need to destroy your reputation." Bruce suggested that if the story remained ambiguous, with different versions circulating, it would actually benefit both of them. The traditional community could save face by claiming it was inconclusive. Bruce could avoid becoming a constant target for challenges. And the real lesson of the fight, the need for martial arts to evolve, could be pursued quietly without public controversy. Wong Jack Man agreed. This agreement was never written down. It was never formalized. It was simply an understanding between two martial artists who had tested each other and learned from the experience. The truth about the stories: this is why, to this day, there are so many different versions of what happened in that Oakland school on December 5, 1964. Wong Jack Man's version was that the fight had been essentially a draw, stopped by the masters before a conclusion could be reached. Some of the traditional masters who witnessed the fight supported this version. Bruce Lee's students told a very different story. They said Bruce had dominated from start to finish, that Wong Jack Man had been completely outclassed. Bruce himself rarely talked about the fight. When asked, he would usually say it was a private matter and change the subject. But to his close students and friends, he would occasionally mention it as the fight that changed my life. Not because I won, but because it exposed my limitations. The truth, as witnessed by those 10 people, probably lies somewhere between these versions. Yes, Bruce won clearly. That's not really in dispute. Wong Jack Man ended up on the ground, unable to continue. But it wasn't the complete domination that some claimed, and it wasn't the draw that others suggested. The different stories exist not because people were lying, but because Bruce Lee deliberately created ambiguity to protect both himself and his opponent. The transformation, the fight with Wong Jackman, was never filmed. There are no photographs. There is no objective proof of what exactly happened. All we have are the memories of 10 witnesses, filtered through time, emotion, and loyalty. But the impact of that fight is undeniable. After December 1964, Bruce Lee's approach to martial arts changed completely. He abandoned the idea of style altogether. He stopped teaching Wing Chun as a system and started teaching principles in steady speed, directness, efficiency, simplicity. The physical conditioning that would later make him famous, the incredible speed and power, the philosophical depth, all of it can be traced back to the lessons of that 8-minute fight. Bruce became obsessed with improving, not just physically, but philosophically. He began studying biomechanics, kinesiology, Western boxing, fencing, wrestling, anything that could make him more efficient. The fight had humbled him in a way that victory usually doesn't humble people. The real secret. So what's the real secret that only 10 people knew? It's not the fight itself. The fight happened, witnesses saw it, stories were told. The real secret was what Bruce learned from it. He learned that traditional martial arts, as practiced in 1964, were not efficient for real fighting. He learned that forms and techniques needed to serve function, not the other way around. He learned that evolution is more important than preservation. But he also learned something deeper. He learned that defeating an opponent is easy compared to transcending your own limitations. Wong Jackman was never Bruce Lee's real enemy. Bruce Lee's real enemy was his own satisfaction with his current level. The fight forced him to confront the gap between where he was and where he needed to be, and that realization, that hunger for constant improvement, is what made Bruce Lee into a legend. The legacy. Wong Jackman, for his part, also changed after the fight. He continued teaching traditional kung fu, but he incorporated some of the lessons from his encounter with Bruce. He became less rigid, more open to adaptation. The two men never fought again. They were never friends, but they maintained a respectful distance from each other. When Bruce Lee died in 1973, Wong Jackman was one of the few traditional masters who attended the funeral. He bowed to Bruce's casket and said a prayer in Cantonese. Someone asked him what he was praying for. He said, "I'm thanking him for the lesson he taught me about my own limitations." The truth, only 10 people know. The fight lasted 8 minutes, but the lessons lasted a lifetime. Bruce Lee never wanted you to know about this fight. Not because he was ashamed of it, but because he wanted the focus to be on the principles he developed afterward, not on the event that inspired them. He wanted you to focus on Jeet Kune Do, on the philosophy of continuous self-improvement, on the idea that the best fighter is not the one who knows the most techniques, but the one who can adapt to any situation. But now you know the truth that only 10 people witnessed. The secret fight that changed everything. The victory that humbled a legend. The 8 minutes that revolutionized martial arts forever. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Because the real lesson of Bruce Lee's secret fight isn't about fighting at all. It's about the courage to constantly evolve, to admit your limitations, to never be satisfied with where you are. It's about being like water, formless, shapeless, always flowing, always adapting, always becoming something more than you were before. That's the secret only 10 people knew. And now you know it too. The fight changed everything. But the real transformation wasn't in that room in Oakland. It was in the years that followed, when Bruce Lee took the lessons of those 8 minutes and built a philosophy that would inspire millions. The secret isn't what happened in the fight. The secret is what happened after.